So why is it so difficult to build habits? This video is going to give you the answer. And it's just amazing that nobody talks about it. So let's just discuss, how do we create habits in the fastest, easiest, most reliable way ever without having to fail all the time and then be all negative about how we can never follow through on anything. The big mistake we make is to totally underestimate what it takes. That's the big mistake. Our daily routines, our thought processes, the things we do, the emotions we have is a flywheel, a giant metal wheel that weighs several tons that's just moving around like, and if you try to stop it, that's impossible. It would take you a long time to do it. And if you try to implement something new into that routine, you first have to break open the old routine. And we don't see that. We say, okay, if I do something enough times over time, then I will have built a new habit. It's simply not correct. I used to wanting to change my sales process when I was selling software to large customers many years ago. And I learned some new stuff. I learned the fact that you have to ask these customers questions so you can analyze what their needs are, and then you can take your software and say, how can we help you solve these problems? Right? That makes total sense. But for the life of me, every time I went into a sales situation, I was just blah, blah. I was just doing the same thing I've been doing for 10 years. Right? So I first had to break open that habit. That had enormous momentum. It just triggered. Every time I went into a sales situation, it triggered that pattern of doing the same things over and over again, which is the whole point of habits. Hallelujah. That's what I want. But I don't want those habits, right? So what I had to do was say, okay, let's take a part of the old habits and make sure that that part triggers the new behavior. So what I would do is I would say, okay, what do I do every time? I take out my laptop. Every single time, that's part of my habits. Then I open my laptop and then I start talking, right? And I need to break that, start talking. I need to ask questions instead of start talking. So what I did was I created a background on my laptop that had the questions with very big letters, red letters on this. And not only that, I took a piece of paper with the questions on it and I put it inside of the laptop. So when I opened it, as I usually did, I was in my pattern, just opened it. I said, it's the questions in the middle of it. Now I have broken the pattern of the old momentum, right? So I took out the paper and each time I looked at the first question and I posed the question to the guy in front of me, right? And then the old momentum took over again and I started talking about myself and and then I would write something down when he answered me and I would look at the questions again and I would pose the second question. I needed to do that 10, 20, 30 times before it was automatic. But now I had forcefully implemented a new behavior into the old by taking just a piece of it and having it trigger something else. And you need to do the same thing. And it takes much more effort than we think. And what happens is that because it takes much more energy and effort than we think we failed when we really haven't. Right? We start doing something every day. We try to change our diet or we try to work out every day, whatever it is, and we totally underestimate what it takes. And then when we drop out of it, fall off the wagon, we start scolding ourselves, negative thinking, all of these things, and that just creates another reference, another piece of proof that we really can't do it. That's the process we go into. Instead, show up with an army. If you want to have a new habit, make sure it's not too big. Make sure that you can take something small, but then guarantee that I'm going to have this habit. Instead of saying I'm going to run an hour every day, first of all, make it small, very small. Say I'm just going to run around the house every day. That's what you're going to do. And then you're going to show up with an army in order to make sure that that actually happens. So how do you do that? Well, every single night, you don't have to go for a run every single night, but you take out your workout clothes and you put it by the bed. So it's easy, right? And then once you jump out of bed, the only thing you need to do is put on the clothes and run around the house or the block or whatever. Something extremely small that you can do. And it's really hard to come up with the story of why you don't have time to run around the house, right? So that's the small challenge, suddenly, the small habit. And then you show up with an army and make sure that the habit is triggered by something you normally would do. And then expect yourself to having to use a lot more force and expect yourself to fail, right? Remove your target stop focusing on the goal and start focusing on building the habit. Make that your result. Make that the result you're after. Like saying, if you wanted to practice playing an instrument, you would never say, okay, now I'm going to play the piano. You have to practice first, right? So now I'm going to create a new habit. So you have to practice that habit, right? What does it mean when you practice something? You allow yourself to fail, right? And then you correct. So you start doing the habit, and then suddenly Thursday, the first week, you don't run. And instead of saying, oh, I failed, stop that. You just say, okay, I didn't play the piece right on the guitar or the piano. So what happened there? What do I need to do? Oh, I hit the wrong note there. Okay. So you didn't go for the run. What happened? Well, I got up, and I got up in the right time, but then I had the story about being too busy to run. So how can I, in the future, when that same situation occurs, how can I make sure that I run anyway? So what do? Now you start being intelligent about building the habit instead of expecting that you can just do it. And the habit is so small that the challenge is easily overcome. Success, right? So you build that habit. That tiny habit, then you expand it, or you come up with a new habit, and then you work on that, and you continue like that all the time, focusing on the habit building pattern. It's exciting. It's actually quite enjoyable. Once you stop the pattern of blowing up a habit that is too big a challenge, and then hitting your head on it a couple of times, and then failing and going back into a negative thought pattern. Once you stop that, and you actually start building habits like you would build skills on an instrument, then it suddenly becomes pleasurable and enjoyable to build habits that then leads to results that are lasting. Then you can do anything. It's amazing. Just get your head right before you begin.